Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today, we'll be talking about a very important subject, and that is about the US-China tensions. We all know that there is a trade war going on, and not only the trade war, I would consider this a Cold War also. And we'll be talking about that in detail. You look at the situation in the South China Sea, or you look at wherever the Chinese want to expand, whether they look forward towards Pakistan, CPEC, there is an objection of the Americans. You talk about the other 5 projects of rail and road and energy corridors. The Americans have a problem there as well. So this is primarily to control the economic expansion of the Chinese as well as the military mindset of the PLA. Now, the important part is that when you look at the current situation, all the allies of United States of America, whether you talk about Japan or South Korea or Vietnam, or you talk about Taiwan for that matter, or all those countries like Malaysia, like Indonesia, pro-USA, whosoever is towing the policy, primarily they're under the influence of the Americans and they have this anti-Chinese sentiment. Now, keeping that in mind, now when you talk about the trade, the business, the bilateral trade primarily between USA and China, look at the overall numbers. And in the past also, the Chinese have been lending money to the American companies, to the American government as well, in order to carry on and continue the current business proposal. So that is something when we talk about the Americans. Last night I was reading a very interesting story about when we talk about make in Pakistan. So now there is this concept of innovate in USA, in United States of America, a proposal of $400 billion. Primarily in general, but $300 billion for the purpose of innovation. This was proposed by Mr. Joe Biden, the former vice president and the current candidate for the upcoming election from the Democratic Party. Now, a lot is happening. Americans, they have started looking inward to build up their strength. But as we all know, that this is a global world, things are different, not as simple as they look. To talk about this, we have with us in our program today. On Skype, we'll be talking to Dr. Talat Shabir Saab, who is an expert on the South Asia. And he is going to also throwing light on the major aspects of the current situation. Thank you very much, Dr. Talat Shabir, for your participation in our today's program. And we'll also be talking to Dr. Muniz Ahmed Saab. He is an international relations expert. He is also going to join us. And we'll try to ask them about the future predictions and also the current situation. Talat Shabir Saab, let me start off from you, sir. Looking at the current tensions, we'll definitely talk about the military aspect and the show of muscle in the region, wherever the Americans or the Chinese, they come close. But let's start off from the economics. Now, it seems that because of this corona, COVID-19, the entire globe is shrinking. Almost $15 trillion just vanished, evaporated from the markets. And that is almost the size of the total Chinese economy. Now, looking at the current situation, the trade war primarily, that is something when the moment the Americans try to influence the Chinese come up with a different kind of a solution. So, looking at the current scenario, so your take, where is it leading? Anyway, there's a little technical issue and we'll soon be talking to Talat Shabir Saab. But right now we've been joined in by Dr. Rifat Hussain Saab. Assalamu alaikum, Rifat Saab.
Wa alaikum assalam, Faisal.
Sir, thank you very much for taking your time out and talking to us. Now, since we are talking about the current, whether we can call it a Cold War scenario or a trade war scenario that has already started. Dr. Saab, I'm sure you must have seen during the times of Nixon how the Cold War started between Russia and the Americans, and the initial sort of steps taken by the Americans, and then eventually it led to the breakup of Soviet Union. Now, do you believe the similar strategy is being used against the Chinese, or is it merely the war on the economic front, sir?
Well, Faisal, it will be the wish of the hardliners in the United States to impose, some kind of a penalty on China and, and punish China for its what they call irresponsible behavior. But China is no longer Soviet Union, as we all know. It's the second largest economy in the world, and some people are saying that if you take the power purchasing parity into account, it's one of the largest economies in the world. So China has has gained enough economic strength that the Americans cannot ignore it, and they cannot engineer China's downfall the way they were able to do it vis-a-vis the Soviet Union. So that's one aspect of it. The second thing is that the Americans are threatening to punish China, but they will not be able to implement this strategy because there's very little international support available to them, so that they can threaten whatever they want, but they will have very little success in trying to implement that strategy. So which actually redounds to China's advantage. And China has enough economic clout to withstand the pressure that the Trump administration is trying to exert on them. So because of these two primary reasons, I do not think that the Chinese would walk into what is known as the Thucydides trap, which means that the rising power, when it comes into conflict with the declining power, so the area of tension between them is the highest at that point. But the Cold War will continue. But beyond this Cold War, I do not think that the Americans can exert any more pressure on the Chinese. And the Americans also know the limits of their influence as to how they would like to effect that strategy. If you look at the Pentagon documents, they have declared China as a competitor country. They have declared China as an adversary, and they would like to contain it. And as part of that strategy, they are trying to rope India in. And there's a four-power alliance which includes Australia, which includes Japan, which also includes South Korea, and it also, of course, includes the Americans and the Indians. But that alliance has its own internal contradictions, and they will not be able to put up a unified opposition to the Chinese assertiveness.
All right. Dr. Saab, you stay with us. We've also been joined in by Dr. Talat Shabir Saab, who's expert in South Asia. Talat Saab, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.
Talat Saab, thank you very much, sir, for taking out your time. Now, since we are talking about the ongoing trade war between China and the United States of America, the two largest economies in the world, two huge military powers as well, plus the alliances. Now, as we always heard that this century is going to be the century of Asia. And then we heard about the CPEC, OBOR, and the kind of advancements made in Russia or in China for that matter. Now, do you believe, sir, that the actual strength of the Chinese, since that's economy, when it comes to the military muscle, the Americans, I mean, the kind of firepower they have, there is no match, we do understand. But what exactly do you think of the American presence in the South China Sea? We hear almost on a daily basis that X number of these aircraft carriers, I mean, they've been sent in the region, and then looking at the Americans and the primarily the Indo-Pacific strategy of the Americans, where is it leading? Is it going to destabilize the entire region, sir? Or you believe that this is going to create an equilibrium primarily? How do you see that, Dr. Talat?
Thank you, Faisal. I think the competition between United States and China is primarily on who leads the world in coming century. China has asserted in many ways, like we say that China has become economic giant in a couple of years, and now it has threatened United States interests across the world. So when we talk of military muscles, I agree with you that still America has a military muscle that can flex across the world, and probably China, despite being an economic power, won't be able to assert militarily at the moment that America can assert. But I think there's a lot of pressure in America because when we talk from the realist perspective, we know that it is now a transition phase. Like one sitting superpower is being challenged by another coming superpower, and in that way, America feels.
Yeah, I think there's some technical problem with the connection. But moving back to Dr. Rifat Saab, now, do you believe that the tensions which are mounting by the day between the US and the Chinese, leading to talk of a new Cold War, and most of these analysts believe that the Americans, since Trump administration has gone global against the Chinese, the Americans are entering a dangerous territory. Would you agree with this kind of a statement, sir?
Well, Faisal, one thing that you have to understand is that the current American attitude, hostility, or animus, whichever way you want to characterize it, is driven by their electoral campaign. And, as Trump is going to face elections in November 2020, so they think that, they can play the anti-China card and they can tap into the lobbies who have previously been promoting this China threat theory. So the advent of the COVID-19 has only added impetus to their drive to jack up the rhetoric against the Chinese. But the Chinese also understand that this outbreak of this hostility, the latest outbreak of hostilities between towards their country, is not going to last long. And I think their relationship is going to move back to a little bit of normality after the elections are over. However, the American efforts, like sending their naval task forces to South China Sea, and they are trying to provoke an incident which can be used to further enhance their domestic electoral support for the Republican administration, particularly for President Trump. So, and the Chinese also understand this. They have extended the olive branch to the Americans so many times, and they have said that we do not want conflict, and especially we do not want any kind of a shooting war between the American forces and the Chinese forces. And Chinese have been very careful. But at the same time, the Chinese have also drawn a red line that, beyond certain limits, when the Americans are trying to challenge directly their security interests in the South China Sea, so there's going to be a Chinese response. And the Americans would be well advised to look into the recent incident, for example, which happened along the Sino-Indian border, because there were claims that the Chinese had put up, and they said that if you try to acquire territory over which we have a claim, then and if you do not respect our security interests, then there will be hell to pay, and and they have proven the point. So I think the Americans will engage in a lot of saber rattling. They will try to increase their force, but short of this Cold War or the deepening of the Cold War, I do not think that the American government is in any position to effect some kind of a global change, which will be harmful to the Chinese interests.
All right, Dr. Saab, once again we have been joined in by Dr. Talat Shabir Saab. Let me rephrase the previous question and also put your input in there as well. Dr. Shabir Saab, Dr. Talat says that the anti-Chinese sentiment, that's what Trump is trying to capitalize on in the upcoming elections. Yes, we do hear about the anti-Pakistan sentiment in India. Regarding BJP, I mean, they would always have slogans against Pakistan to fetch more votes from the extreme hardliners inside India. Do you think the same formula is actually happening in USA also? This is what exactly Dr. Rifat Saab said, that the anti-Chinese sentiments are being sold there. Do you think it's the right commodity which the people of the USA they will buy, sir?
I had an opportunity to talk to few American academics last month, and exactly I would agree with Dr. Saab that there is a sentiment against China. There's a sentiment against they are portraying China as a kind of some country that is invading American values, and that kind of environment is being created. I think President Trump and his electoral team, is working on what BJP's Modi did in India. They capitalize on anti-Pakistan sentiment, and in America, there are evidences they are beginning to do that, and they're trying to kind of provoke American public against China, and they are trying to convince American public that there's some kind of Chinese invasion of American values, and we need to be cautious of that. And whatever America is doing, like trade war and a kind of cold war that is being waged against China, and on climate change, on coronavirus, whatever is being said against China with regards to various issues that American says is the responsibility of China. I think this will be used as anti-China sentiment will be used for maybe electoral success of President Trump.
Okay,
But
because
I think there's another
Dr. Saab,
school of-
normally whenever we hear about Donald Trump, the general perception in China is that they look upon Trump as a weak as well as somebody who is very error prone as a leader. And this is going to lead into something which we are not exactly aware of. I mean, this could lead to a conflict. This could lead to some more sanctions by the Americans on the Chinese, or maybe some support. They have withdrawn the support for the Hong Kong. But when it comes to the Taiwanese, we all know what's going on out there, or Japanese or Koreans or Vietnam or Philippines. And you talk about the whole Far Eastern region where they have allies. Let's comment on that side, sir.
When we say error-prone president or an individual, I think that goes in the favor of Chinese, because Chinese expect there's some kind of a misstep by President Trump, and Chinese get advantage. What I see when I look at politics by American president or the Chinese response. Chinese are very deep and cautious about their response. They are very careful when they talk of America. But of course, they respond very aggressively. But normally they expose any move by the American president. So in my opinion, in next before elections, one that we see that there's going to be anti-China sentiment. But when we talk of conflict or a competition that leading to a dangerous situation, I don't see any, because I think both the countries and both the leaders, they will try to avoid a situation where confrontation goes worse. And they will try to, because if a situation, particularly in America, where people have, you speak against President Trump, and there's a public opinion, there's media, free media in America against, and it is particularly wary of various actions of President Trump. President Trump will be a loser if this continues.
Now, we'll be talking to Dr. Munees Ahmed, an IR expert. He's also joined us. First of all, Dr. Saab, thank you very much for taking out the time and talking to PTV World. Talking about a very interesting article.
Speak louder, please. I can't hear.
Can you hear me clearly now, sir?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Okay. Sir, I'll try to be a little loud now. So it says that there is a chance of hot war between the Chinese and the Americans. Frederick Campy is the president and CEO of Atlantic Council think tank. He said that Beijing has become increasingly belligerent amid the coronavirus pandemic, and then he highlighted a couple of areas. He said that China has stepped up its repression of its ethnic Muslim minorities, tightens its grip over Hong Kong, increased its pressure on Taiwan, stepped up tensions in the South China Sea, escalated attacks on Australia for seeking a coronavirus investigation, heightened the pressure of Canada for detaining a Huawei executive, unleashed fatal force on the border of India, and retouch up its propaganda against the United States. This is what he wrote. Obviously, this is the American point of view. But these are the things, I mean, if you look into the detail, yes, China is getting there slowly but surely. I think the vision of Xi Jinping, that means a lot, says a lot as well. Your take, sir?
Well, I think there are, there is some truth as far as the American their perception about China is concerned, but it is not China which has taken advantage of pandemic crisis. Other countries have also misused, other countries have also tried to, seize the opportunity in order to accomplish their own agendas. But I think in case of Communist China or People's Republic of China, Americans are literally shocked. I mean, how can a country which 5 decades ago was underdeveloped, which was not an economic threat, so in just 4 decades, 45 years' time, 30 years' time, China has emerged as a monster as far as for the U.S. is concerned. But I think the realities, there are some of the realities which we have to take into account. The first is that the American power certainly is on decline. Whether it is the economic power, whether it is the political power, it is on decline. The second thing is that how the November 2020 elections in the U.S. Will unfold things. I mean, if there's a change in the White House, then certainly I don't think that Joseph Biden, if he wins presidential elections, he'll be as aggressive, as hostile as Donald Trump. The third reality is basically that the Chinese are also mindful of their own fault lines. I mean, you have talked about Xinjiang, you have talked about Hong Kong, and of course there are other issues, human rights and things like that. So they are trying to make sure that the pressure which the U.S. And the West used to exert on China, blaming China, criticizing China for its track of human rights, things like that. So they're trying to level best to manage things. So these are the realities which we have to take into account, and we must also try to be mindful to the fact that Chinese government, I think it was 2 decades ago, Chinese government put $1 trillion with the U.S. Treasury. So, that is something. But the Americans argue, if you allow me a couple of more minutes, Americans argue that what China is today as the world's second largest economy, it is basically because of the U.S. Every year, the last 20 years, China is getting around $200 billion of trade surplus with the U.S. So the trade with the U.S., as far as China is concerned, China has benefited a lot from. And the foreign reserves of China for around $3 trillion or whatever the amount is, the Americans argue that it is basically because of their the trade surplus which they had earned from their trade with the U.S. But that is something which basically everyone knows. The challenge for the United States is how to deal with the post-pandemic world, how to deal with the global order, because as I said earlier, that if there's a change in the White House and the damage control measures which if Joseph Biden wins, so the damage control measures as far as the image of the U.S. is concerned, because China has benefited a lot in the last 3.5 years because of what the policies of Donald Trump have been very lethal, have been very disastrous for the U.S. And that is what China has calculated.
All right. Now, that was a very important point raised by you, sir, regarding the trade surplus. That is something amazing, and this is exactly what the strength of the Chinese was and even is now. But Dr. Rafat Saab, there is a very important point. Now, tell us, that when we talk about this very contested region in the South China Sea, now we have
Right.
learned that the Americans, they have in place 2 of their aircraft carriers, and you know exactly
Yeah.
how much other fighting power or the fighting or the firepower basically is with it. I mean, there's a submarine, there are nuclear devices, and then there are so many fighting frigates and so much. Just imagine. It's basically one aircraft carrier, and its strength is like equivalent to a very good air force of any country primarily. So now the point is, sir, that wherever the Chinese are trying to expand, the Americans are trying to put a check on them. And the adversaries of the Chinese, they have become the friends of the Americans, and this is how it is. And then on top of that, the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, is trying to capitalize on the anti-Chinese sentiment, as you earlier mentioned as well. Now, 2 points. One, what if Trump loses? Do you think the policy will change for the Chinese by the Democrats? Or you believe that this is going to be the same way and maybe some other formulas could be applied? Dr. Saab.
Realistically speaking, pragmatically speaking, the days of
Well,
Yeah, Dr. Rifat Saab.
yeah, Faisal, there are 2 points. With regard to who will be the next president of the United States, whether it's going to be Trump or whether it's going to be Joe Biden, whether the Democrats will win the White House. Right now, it looks that Trump's chances of winning the second term look pretty low and pretty minimal. So
Exactly.
in case Joe Biden comes into power, which essentially means that that he will have to back off from the anti-China rhetoric that the President Trump has been engaged in. However, I should say that vis-a-vis the China threat theory, there's a bipartisan consensus that exists within the U.S. because whether you talk to the Democrats or you talk to the leaving out Trump, whether you talk to Republicans, they really believe that China is on the rise and the United States is on the decline. So they will do their utmost to redress this situation. That's one. The other fact that you mentioned, that the recent deployment and the Americans putting in their more naval power in the South China Sea, that's a question. That's a coercive tactics that the Trump administration is engaging in. And the most important thing is that there is very little support which is available within ASEAN for this kind of a escalation. So the Americans will try to monitor, they will augment their presence, and but when it comes to the actual outbreak of the hostility, I don't think that there is very little local support. Local means the regional allies, particularly the ASEAN countries, they are very apprehensive because they do not want any kind of outbreak of a conflict between the Americans and the Chinese. The third point, which I want to emphasize, is that we have not talked about it, but that's the feeling of Taiwan, because Americans would like to send a message to the nationalist government in Taiwan, and they would like to encourage them to move towards some kind of an autonomy. Now, if that happens, and the Americans are selling arms to them, and they have assured them of their strategic support, so if Taiwan takes that bait, so that will be a real point of contention, because the Chinese feel that Americans are trying to challenge them in Hong Kong, and they are trying to challenge their position on Taiwan, and they are also trying to lay siege to the Chinese by instituting an encirclement strategy in the South China Sea. So it remains to be seen. But I do not think that in an election year, Trump will be foolish enough to
It
initiate
will not
some
be a
kind of
walkover, sir. This is going to be a very tough election. But let's see.
Yeah.
Dr. Shabir, let me put this question to you here. And that is about a huge strategic deal between China and Iran. Now, we all know that there are a lot of American sanctions on Iran, and at multiple levels, whether talking about the uranium enrichment or the selling of oil or gas or their precious metals for that matter, or even imports. Now, the point is that this $400 billion deal for the next 25 years which says that the Chinese would be buying discounted oil from them, and they will be doing a lot of infrastructure activities inside Iran. Obviously, talking about the rail link in which the Indians have been sidelined, plus a lot more is being taken over by the Chinese. Now, these are like huge steps, and we do understand that, like the Americans, they exploit the Taiwanese and then get couple of statements against China. Over here, sir, the real deal is being done. Again, I'll say slowly but surely. Dr. Shabir.
Yeah, I think I call this American $400 billion deal between China and Iran. I call it a strategic, a step by China. Your enemy is my friend's formula applies here, because I think you've rightly pointed out toward Taiwan or Hong Kong, where America or many Western countries also play their part and try to undermine Chinese influence or Chinese, one China policy and kind of that thing. So it is a strategic signaling also to America that look, we can go for strategic cooperation with strategic as well as economic cooperation with your force. So this is very important with regards to with regards to our region, where we also we have kind of disturbed relationship with Iran also, and we have a friendly relationship with China. So this is very important, and this is signaling to the US and their interests in the region. And I think the way this is also a strategic move by China to tell America that if you can play on using our enemies, we can also do some kind of cooperation with your enemies. But I think the way Dr. Ifa said that situation is not going to worsen as we expect. Since in the year of election, President Trump and his administration won't like anything happening, and largely I think it is. I think it can be seen that there's going to be no, but this threat will continue to be there. This confrontation and this Cold War continue to stay there because, as I already mentioned, that it's a power game. So the Chinese they are trying to assert the power, and Americans will definitely try to say what power they enjoyed for a long time, and they will continue to do that.
Now, Munissa, talking about the two military mights, China and the Americans, let's do the comparison. I was reading that Nimitz as well as Ronald Reagan, two of these aircraft carriers, along with one more, they were earlier exercising in the seas of Philippines. I think the third one, if I'm not sure, was Roosevelt. So look at the firepower they have in the region. And then on the 4th of July, the Independence Day, these Hornets, F-18s, they were flying over, landing on the aircraft carriers. So, and the Chinese had to wrap up their 5-day drill. So what is that supposed to mean? Is that the military of the Americans are trying to show the muscle of strength in the region? Are they trying to contain the Chinese, or can they contain the Chinese along with their allies if something really erupts from that part of the world? Munissa?
Yes, very interesting. There used to be a policy of containment, during the Cold War times, John Foster Dulles and others. I don't think that despite the so-called, alliance unfolding, composed of Australia, Japan, India, and United States, China cannot be contained as such. United States can try its level best as far as the demonstration of its military power is concerned. And by the way, the asymmetry between the Chinese and the American, military and all that, that asymmetry is narrowing day by day. I'm not saying that China will be at par with the U.S. in terms of its nuclear and, other weapons of mass destruction, but certainly China has a lot of ambitions. But basically, we have to understand that the Chinese have a policy since 1979. The last war, which is called a policy of non-interference, non-intervention, and the last war which China fought was against Vietnam in 1979, 41 years ago. So they are very clear. No confrontation as such, confrontation which can escalate, confrontation which can lead to a situation in which, because the main focus is still there to emerge as a global power. So whatever containment policy the United States and the post-November this 2020 elections, I don't think it will matter. I agree with you, certainly, that there are concerns as far as the neighbors of China, the Southeast Asia is concerned, South China Sea. They are very legitimate and genuine concerns. And what has happened in Hong Kong, the manner in which China has tried to, assert its position, and in case of Taiwan also. So China has also a policy of patience. They were able to get Hong Kong and Macau, and they can wait for another 50 years to get Taiwan. So that is what is the reality as far as China is concerned.
All right. Now that's a very, very interesting. I mean, the patience. When you talk about the patience of the Chinese, I think they have the tendency to wait, move slowly, but yet keep everything in alignment as well. Now, Dr. Rifat Saab, since I've done so many shows with you on this particular issue, do you actually believe that the future is all about Asia? When you look at Europe, for that matter, they ended up having Brexit or no Brexit, that's a separate issue, separating England. But when we talk about the currencies, for that matter, or common trade or the regional trade, they've done a brilliant job. Americans, they have kept themselves aside, looking inward, as I earlier said. If you remember when Donald Trump took charge, NAFTA was an issue, NATO was an issue, China was an issue, so was Pakistan. And even I heard him saying that we'll use India to counter Pakistan. So in this particular case, where things are getting different, the election is approaching, Afghan situation, Iran nuclear deal, issues in NATO, and so forth. I mean, if you remember, he was also talking about building a wall between America and the Mexico. So, he came up with some very weird ideas. But what I'm trying to tell you, that things have changed in the Middle East, as we all have witnessed over the last 4 or 5 years. And it seems that the influence of the Chinese, it's getting more. When you talk about Asia in particular, you see Asia being a region where peace can prevail, or this tension is going to be there for a couple of decades. You never know. Dr. Rafat Hussain Saab. I think if Dr. Rafat is not there, would you like to comment on this? Shabir Saab? Shabir Saab, can you hear me, sir? Yeah.
Last part, I was just missed the last part of your question.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that looking at the current scenario, when you talk about the influences, look what is happening in the Middle East. And when you talk about the Far Eastern region as well, things are changing. Do you believe that the overall situation is going to remain fluid for some time? Or you see peace prevailing in the region? Or it could lead to something, which nobody wants? Could be a war, or could be furthermore tensions between the Chinese and the adversaries?
I don't think so, because I think peace is going to prevail, but small skirmishes or small, confrontations or small display of competition, some kind of trade imbalances and, on aggressive statements. But I think it's not, war is not an option with the superpowers. Yes, of course, there's, when we talk of, Cold War between USSR and United States, it was different. I think there was some kind of economic in comparison between the two countries. America was, leading superpower, and the USSR had certain domestic problems, and it had to grapple with those. China is not. China is different. I think China, like I always say, when you run into 71 countries in through Belt and Road Initiative, so nobody can contain you. So if you are going to all the countries with economic packages and development and promises for connectivity and prosperity, so you align those countries. You actually make economic alliances with those countries. So containment strategy of America, I think it will soon become irrelevant, and China will prevail in coming times. And the way Dr. Ifas Saab has said, that even if America wants to wage a war, which conventional war so to say, so the countries the countries in the periphery of China would like war happening in their periphery, or in their country, and using their country to giving America facilities to invade China. Though I don't think so that this is the time to think of those kind of alliances. I think China, through its economic, though China is very aggressive, when we look at the behavior of both the superpowers, China is very aggressive in responding to whatever comes from Trump administration or Americans. So, but still, I think there's a lot of changes are going to take place, and change will take place primarily because of Belt and Road Initiative. And I think the world in future is going to be divided between Belt and Road Initiative nations and non-Belt and Road Initiative nations. Any nation which comes on board on Belt and Road Initiative, China, has will have cooperation, will have stakes in those countries. So I think very little number of countries would be left who will be non-Belt and Road Initiative countries, and China, in my assessment, is likely to prevail. Though this war, as I said, this is a competition between the superpower which is existing and sitting superpower, and the superpower which is sitting. So I think that will also continue. But war at the moment is out of question.
Well, I think that is a very positive note to end the show. Thank you very much, Dr. Talat Shabir, Dr. Rifat Hussain Saab, and Dr. Moees Ahmed Saab for your participation in the show. And that's all we have for this hour. Inshallah, I'll see you tomorrow at 8. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.